Hey, welcome back. It's Logan Christopher with the Legendary Strength Podcast. It's very important that you listen to last week's podcast before you listen to this one. In that episode, I talked about my journey and discoveries with neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and sort of a foundation for some of the stuff that we're going in because I've been training in this stuff for a while. Needed to give that foundation. Right now I'm going through what's known as the Master Practitioner course, a higher level of NLP. So in order to um, really grasp the ideas I'm talking about here, you want to have some foundation. Now, there's tons and tons of details that go into this, and if this is your first exposure, even beyond that first podcast to this stuff, it may go over your head because this stuff isn't generally taught in many sort of things. But I'm going to try to keep it simple at the same time and give you some concrete exercises, some concrete drills that you can do so you can get a feel for the power that these drills and exercises, these skills that are taught in NLP, what they can actually do for you. So we're going to be talking about a couple things, and really sort of the focus of this is going to be regarding beliefs. Beliefs are going to determine a whole lot of what you are capable of doing. In fact, I was just reading through this section uh, of this psychologist from Stanford University, Albert Bandura, and he came up with what is known as the Bandura curve. This is very interesting stuff. What he found in studies in many different areas, he was looking at this, and it seemed to be pretty much human nature. This is how people work. Cognitive expectations often limit behavioral performance, even when people possess the necessary ability. What he basically found was that where people expected to perform was often how they actually performed, close to the same range in there. And what occurs is if someone actually performed much better than what they expected to, they would write it off as if it was perhaps beginner's luck or just some fluke on while they were able to do that. So instead of actually changing their expectations of how good they were, they would just write it off so they could maintain those same expectations. And another thing you found, which is very interesting, is a rise in expectation leads to an increase in actual performance. Now, I've written about this subject a little bit before. If you want to become strong, you have to expect to become strong. If you expect that it's not going to work for you, you're going to be right. It's not going to work so well. Now, there's a whole bunch more details that go into this, but this really ties into the idea of beliefs, because what is an expectation? It's a belief that something is going to work at some certain level. This can be a high performance level, a mediocre level, or a low level where you're really not going to get the results in doing it. So if you have been following along, you most likely saw last week I posted a video of me hitting one of my goals I had, which was to do a rack pull, a partial deadlift of over 1,000 pounds. Very happy about achieving that. I did 1,025 pounds. That video is available online. It's on my blog. It's on Facebook. I posted it everywhere because I was very excited about hitting this goal that I had. I've been using the rack pull for a while now. I think it's a phenomenal exercise in and of itself, but I'm also using it as an assistance exercise for the full range deadlift. Now, I haven't posted this video yet, but I once again for the second time ever have deadlifted 505 pounds, and it was easier than the first time, which I did a couple years ago. So for me, it took some time to work back up to this level of deadlifting ability because I hadn't done it in a long time. There's a break between when I had done it last and now, but I've worked back up to that level and actually a little bit beyond because it was an easier lift. I didn't go for a new all-time PR, I just matched this one, but in the near future I definitely will be doing that. I'll be pushing that up because my goal is now 600 pounds. So here's the really cool thing. In the past week, I've been focusing on a lot of other things. In this course, we break out into groups and do lots of different NLP drills. In most of them, I've been focusing on many other areas of my life, but also sometimes I choose to focus on my exercising in some ways. Now I do this stuff a lot myself, so I don't focus all the time on that because I don't have a whole lot of limiting beliefs in my way. At least that's a belief right there. But occasionally there are some. So in one drill, I brought up that I was feeling that I had a little bit of doubt in my ability to achieve this 600-pound deadlift. That I also some fear of safety, that I could safely pull off this move. If you don't know, I do some round back deadlifting, which seems to work well for me. I've been able to do it quite a bit without hurting myself. In fact, I very seldom hurt myself. Still, are some safety concerns, especially as the weights go up, regardless of how well you're listening to your body. It's just increased demands upon your body. A couple of guys were talking about that in the rack lift. The intense pressure that creates when you're handling over 1,000 pounds. It was, I've never felt pressure like that. That amount of tension in my body was extreme, and to continue to push that, even though I feel like I could do that, there may be some costs on the body that I wouldn't necessarily want to do. So with a full range deadlift, it will be less of a weight, but it is a larger range of motion. So there is some concern there, especially in the form that I do it. So I needed to clear it up, because realize, if you have a belief that you're going to hurt yourself when you're doing something, I don't think that's very constructive towards what you want to actually accomplish. I think if you know how to be safe, this doesn't mean you're going to be reckless with an exercise, but if you know how to be safe, that fear is just going to hold you back. So we did a little bit of a drill in order to help erase this doubt, and I'll be giving you some examples of some different things you can do with that for yourself as well. And it doesn't have to be deadlift, it can be any exercise, any sort of thing, doing a handstand, acrobatic skills, putting weights overhead, all sorts of different things that works for that. And so that happened earlier in the week. Then I did that 1,000-pound rack pull. I was feeling very good that day, very resourceful, jazzed up from doing all this training and having a great time doing it. And then just yesterday, on Sunday, is when I did my 505-pound deadlift. So I hit two big goals of mine. The 505-pound deadlift, that's sort of a sub goal towards the larger goal, but 1,000-pound rack pull was definitely a pretty big goal. I've also been doing awesome training other than that as well. I bent a 8-inch by 5/16 hot rolled steel, and I did that. It was tough, but I did that, and that's one step closer to getting the red nail. So enough about me. Let's dive into how you can use this stuff. I just want to show you, like, the better you get at these mental training skills, the more you'll be able to unlock the powers of your mind and body, because really it is one thing. There is no separation. We like to separate it out, but it is one thing. So when you can unlock more of these powers, it translates directly into immediate increases in what you can do in the gym. And so I'm actually going to talk about what I did to pull off that 505-pound deadlift. But before we get to that, that'll be covered at the end. I want to talk about beliefs. There's a cool little assessment that we learned regarding beliefs. And what you want to do with this is you choose your goal. There's a whole bunch of details that go into goal setting, but you need to have a positive goal statement. For myself, it'd be something like, I will lift 605 pounds in the deadlift. Once you have your goal stated as such, doesn't need to be too long, but something simple like that. Of course, having stuff like deadlines, all the other details is good as well. And I think actually having a deadline with what we're talking about here will actually change up how you assess the goal. So for the purpose of this, I will achieve a 605-pound deadlift by the end of the year. That is my goal in my time frame. So the first thing you want to do is say to yourself, the goal is desirable and worth it. As you say the statement, my goal is desirable and worth it, How does that feel to you? Are you saying, yes, absolutely it is? Or is there some internal resistance that comes up? In doing this, you have to become more aware of your body, internal sensations, thoughts, images, things you hear internally. Whatever comes up, that's going to be important, because if you just go through these really quickly and just say yes, 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 you are missing the point of the exercise and you're not going to get any results from it. So when I say my goal is desirable and worth it, yes, this is something I really want to do. If it isn't for you, whatever your goal happens to be, you may need to change the goal, or you would then explore what is it about the goal that you don't feel is worth it. You can change your goal. You can also just change how you perceive the goal, which would then make it desirable and worth it. And some of the things we're going to cover a little bit later, we'll go into detail on this. The second thing you can ask or say yourself, it is possible to achieve the goal. Now this is talking about just the possibility in the universe, not necessarily specifically for you. We're going to get to that later. But is this a possible goal? Many people have deadlifted more than 600 pounds. So absolutely it is possible to achieve. If my goal was, I want to deadlift 2,000 pounds. Now, that's not necessarily achievable. Could I do something like a rack pull with that? Yes, I believe so. Someone at some point, I mean, they've deadlifted over 1,000 pounds, but 2,000 pounds, that may not be possible. But 600 pounds certainly is. Once again, pay attention to your body. This is something you can think about a little more logically, whether it's possible or not. Have other people done it or not? But you still may have some sort of internal resistance, so you want to pay attention to those things. Okay, third statement. What has to be done in order to achieve the goal is ecological. Now, I need to explain the term ecological. This is a term widely used in NLP, ecology. It's about, if you pursue your goal and discard everything else you're doing in life, you may be able to hit the goal, but at what sort of cost? Is this going to destroy other areas of your life in doing it? Not necessarily destroy, but what sort of impact is it going to have? So if you have a goal to, join the Olympics, these people often have to sacrifice other areas of their life in order to spend that much time training, that much time preparing to achieve a goal like that. So if your goal is to, run a marathon, and that requires a certain amount of training to be able to do, then what if you don't have that time at all? What if it means you're neglecting your family, which is something very important to you, something you value? Then you have to factor in all these other areas of your life, everything else that's going on. If you just set a goal in a vacuum, oftentimes why it fails is because these other things aren't taken into consideration. So when you say, what has to be done in order to achieve my goal is ecological, what comes up for you? Is there some other things you have to take into consideration? If my goal was to deadlift 600 pounds and I had just broken my back, I might want to rehab that a bit before I go towards that goal. Would I think that's possible? Yeah, actually, you have the strongman Valentin Decool, who broke his back. I believe he shattered a number of different bones, but he went on to set some powerlifting records and amazing performing strongman over there in Russia. So just figure out all these other details of your life. What is appropriate? What is ecological for you to do? And once again, pay attention to what comes up for you. You may need to slightly alter the goal. You may need to do some things just to prioritize. Priorities are a big part of ecology, because you can have many different goals in different areas of your life. How do you balance those all? Even within training, I have a number of different goals. Do they all fit together? I have to figure that out. There are reasons why as I'm doing a whole bunch of bending right now, as I'm pursuing the red nail, I'm not doing hand balancing. In my previous training, I discovered those two don't really go well together. It's just a bit too much work on the wrists. So that's not something that I'm trying to do right now. It wouldn't be ecological for me to try to work on a one-handed handstand while I'm doing bending. Could it be done? Probably in some sort of way, but they really don't go well together. So the next idea is I have the capabilities necessary to achieve my goal. Now this is about, is it possible for you, and do you have what you need in order to achieve it? I think I mentioned this possibly the other week, or something I was writing, I forget where, but if you have a goal to deadlift 600 pounds, do you have a barbell and 600 pounds of weight that you can use for this exercise? If you don't have that, that's lacking the actual physical resources to do it. But you also need the internal capabilities, the internal resources to do it. So do you have everything you really need in order to pursue this goal? And this can be a fun one because, once again, pay attention to your body as you say that statement and notice what you need in order to achieve your goal, what comes up for you. And you may notice, I don't feel confident towards this goal. And having confidence towards any goal is kind of a thing you absolutely should in having it. You may not know a plan of action. I like to follow my body's own feedback. I've been doing this stuff for years, so I know how to train and put that together to increase what I'm doing. If you don't have those details, you don't really have the capability. So getting a coach may be the best thing for you to do. So do you have the capabilities necessary to achieve your goal? And now we get to the last statement. I deserve to achieve my goal. You should immediately say yes to this one. But if you don't, that's very important. If for some reason you don't think you're deserving of this goal, or you don't have permission, there's some different ways that you can phrase this question that will give you slightly different answers. Are you responsible to achieve your goal? If you don't have these things and they're not immediately there, once again, very important. If you feel you don't deserve to achieve a goal, fat loss, this can be a big problem for many people there. They don't deserve. They don't feel like they deserve. Of course, anyone deserves to be at a healthier weight, but people, due to past trauma, whatever, any sort of conditioning, any sort of limiting beliefs, because that's what these are, they may not believe they deserve to achieve the goal. So once again, if that comes up for you, that can be changed, and this is really something where you want to do some things to become deserving of that goal. So if you just go through this simple belief assessment, once again, I'll recap them. My goal is desirable and worth it. It is possible to achieve my goal. What has to be done in order to achieve my goal is ecological. I have the capabilities necessary to achieve my goal, and I deserve to achieve my goal. Go through each of those statements for your goal, and likely there will be something that comes up. There may be times when nothing comes up, but likely you'll find something, and then you can step back from that and figure out what needs to be added in order to make this a more appropriate goal for you. And realize when you make these things, make these areas better, where you are saying emphatically yes to all of them. If you have all of this stuff, if you have a worthwhile goal, if it's ecological for you, you feel like you deserve it, if you're capable and you know it's possible, then you're going to be able to hit that goal much better. If any one of these is lacking, there's a good chance you're not going to hit your goal. Very important stuff. So what do you do if you find out that one of these areas is lacking? And I'm going to talk about two different things, two different options. Well, actually, there's several options within it, but two main areas of how you can approach this. One of which is the use of time. Now, we all currently live in the present. You can't actually be living in the past or living in the future. Certain people will tend to be more focused on the past, more focused on the future, also more focused on the present. I myself tend to be a future-oriented person. That's why I really like goals. I'm always working to achieve them. I'm always looking at, it's going to be brighter in the future. Everything's going to get better. And that's why I've achieved a certain amount. And that's useful. It's not necessarily better than other things. It depends on what you're going for. For me, I really like this future orientation, so it works well for me. But you can actually, as a mental construct, step into the future. If you have your goal is 6 months out and you put yourself in that place where you've already achieved your goal, then looking back, you can see certain steps you may have taken along the way. You can see how it feels to achieve that goal. And you may notice things from that perspective, because this is really all about perspective and how we frame things. You may notice things from that perspective that can enhance how you are in the actual present reality. So if you step into the future when you've achieved that goal, what is different there than when you are in the present? You can also go to your past. Let's say you felt like you didn't deserve to achieve your goal. What is some goal you had in the past? And that doesn't have to be a related goal necessarily, but something you felt that you 100%, even more than that, 110% deserved to have, and then when you got it, you felt great about it. Go back into that and notice what was different about that goal. See if you can summon up that resource and how it felt within your body to really deserve to have something like that. And can you bring that over using something like anchoring? Several different ways, but if you can bring that feeling into the present and bring that into your current goal, then you will have that deservedness, which you ought to have with any goal you are going for to achieve. So you can play with time in this manner. You can go into the past, you can go into the future and realize there's a whole bunch of things. You can go 100 years into the future, you can go next week. Depending on your goal, depending on what you're trying to achieve, different things will be useful for what you're doing. But there's a whole bunch you can do with this. This is something I did with my 505-pound deadlift. And I've done plenty of things like this in the past. But what I did before doing this, as I was doing my warm-up sets, working up heavier weights, as I was feeling out my body, judging whether I could go for this goal at the time. What I did was to step into my future, the future when I had deadlifted 605 pounds. And in doing this, I noticed how my body felt. I felt much stronger. I could go into more of the details of this, and this is where it's really useful to have someone experiencing this to really coach you and use their questions wisely in order to draw more details out. Because if you just say you feel stronger and you don't really go into detail on it, you're not going to get much in the way of results. But I actually felt a little bit bigger in doing it. Not that my body just instantly grew in size, but I felt a little bigger. I felt stronger. I felt more of a sense of ownership, like I had this exercise. And at that point, if you can deadlift 605 pounds, 505 pounds is easy to do. So I took this back into the present, and then I deadlifted 505 pounds. Now, my body isn't actually where it will be when I can achieve 605 pounds, but having that sense within my body made that exercise easier, may have made it possible, whereas had I not done this beforehand, I might not have hit my goal right then and there. I might not have achieved it. If you have limiting doubts, stepping into the future after you've achieved something, you don't have any limits. Just think about this. The first time you achieve a certain exercise or a certain weight, it often is really hard to do. But you get to a point eventually, if you continue working with it, where it's really easy. If you could bring that belief like, oh, that's easy. That's easy for me to do. I can do that anytime. Wake me up out of a dead sleep, I could do that. It's that easy for me to do. If you could access that feeling once again, what would that do for exercises that you actually haven't done yet? You'd be much more likely to be able to hit those. So that is something that is well worth playing with. Another thing you can do that can be helpful with these beliefs and a whole bunch else is to step outside of yourself, to take what is known as a second or a third position. A second position would be somebody else. So you could think about someone who has achieved your goal before, or even surpassed your goal. Or you could step into a coach and you really step into the place where you are them. And in that place, you can then ask yourself, how do I feel about this goal? So let's say you don't feel like the 605-pound deadlift is capable for you. Why don't you step into, someone that has deadlifted 800 pounds? How do they feel about going after a new deadlift goal? How do they feel about lifting 600 pounds? Once again, it'd be that thing. Oh, this is easy. I do this as a warm up. But how would they feel about going after a bigger goal? It's like, I know I can do it. I've built myself this far. That's how much further I can continue going. This is likely how they're going to believe. But you step into a specific person and then you can ask the right questions in order to get the different resources you need. A third position is also called the meta position. This is sort of an outside observer. Usually they're not a third position, that's someone standing outside a communication, whereas a first person would be you, second person would be someone that you're communicating with, third person is just the outside observer. And from this outside position, you can be more critical and you can find out, I say critical in a good way, as in analyzing the situation, finding out what needs to be done in order to help you better towards your goal. So you can start in your present, talk about your goal, step into your future where you've already achieved that goal and notice what's different there, notice what you needed to do along the way, but then take a third position, the meta position, where you look from your present to your future and what are some of the steps. The meta position is great for planning because you can see the steps along the way, and in doing this you can notice certain things that you wouldn't have noticed in either of those other two positions. So by changing your perceptual positions from first, second, and third place, by changing where you are in time, past, present, and future, you can access a lot more data, a lot more of the resources you need in order to better help you achieve your goals. You do this along with that little belief assessment. This is going to put you much further along in what you can achieve with your goals. This will definitely be explored a whole bunch more in the future. I mean, it sounds like a weird thing, but by going into the future, the past, different areas, you can access more of the movement qualities like strength if you do it properly, and then that is immediately applicable to what you have right now. Because understand, strength isn't about muscle. Yes, sure, that's included. You got tendons, ligaments, and bones, but it's so much in the mind. So if you can just go into these different places and access more of that power, because you're going to be stronger in the future after all, that's a pretty easy one. If you can actually bring that back and use it, you're going to be much, much stronger. Now, it does take some time for the body to keep up. So you actually have to be careful with this stuff because if you do it right, you can push your limits much further. Even without trying as hard, you can push your limits because your mind has the feeling that it is much stronger, that something's easy to do, and then the body's not quite there. So you do need to be careful with this stuff. It's actually that powerful. But it works really well, and with it, you do it smartly, you're going to get greater and greater results. So I gotta head out now. I got class starting again in about 45 minutes, so I'm going to get this out to you. If you have any questions on this material, be sure to ask me and try this stuff out. I want to hear your feedback, how it works for you. Thank you very much.